Right, for Barastoc and Kentucky Equine, Dr. Clarissa Brown back here. Firstly, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Here today, I suppose, to keep up with the nutrition side of things, and feeding horses and looking after young stock. But we did a talk prior to Christmas, and we were talking about the drought back then, and it was a drought back then. It has really kicked home now. We're filming this middle of May, and I don't think we've had over an inch of rain here in Bendigo since that last interview that we did. For starters, it is a serious issue that we do have here in central Victoria, but right across Victoria, full stop.
Absolutely, and South Australia as well. Really, really low rainfall, resulting in absolutely no grass growth. It's really stressful. A lot of people are really struggling right now to keep their horses fed.
We must also say, like, I travelled to New South Wales, and I can say from young down, young itself's probably okay, but young down experiencing exactly the same problem that we're having right across here. So hopefully this might hit home for quite a few people, and that's one of the reasons we want to do that. I want to make sure that people know to touch base with barastochhorse.com.au. So there is a nutritionist ask question there where you can go straight to that, and they will pass the messages on, or go to KER.com.au as well.
Just
and .com, sorry.
Yep.
And you'll be able to get access to experts. That's the idea of this, so make sure you go to both those websites, and I will put those underneath there. The Barastoc one is quite simple. Basically, there's a nutritionist will respond straight back to that, but if they have harder questions, you go to there and you get access to experts. And KER have just been over recently here in Australia, what the studies they're doing, what they do with their farm in Kentucky. It's amazing. It is not, this will work, we'll guess it. They know, they back themselves in.
Yeah, well, we do a lot of research looking at ways to, make our horses perform optimally, but also for optimal health as well. We really focus on welfare and health of the horse with our research. So yes, contact us for it's free nutrition advice. We want to help horse owners.
Right. Number one, we had a sprinkle of rain the other day.
We did.
We've had a couple. We've both got two jackets on because it is bitterly cold today. We've had a frost. We've got a green tinge coming to the grass. So if you were not thinking about it, if you like, driving past, you could turn around and you could say, the drought's breaking because the grass is coming through. We've got this green tinge.
We do.
One of the worst teasers we can get, isn't it?
It is one of the worst teasers, and it does give people a little bit of hope, but unfortunately, with that inch of rain that we had a couple of weeks ago, we do have a green tinge, but now that it's cooled off, that grass is not going to grow. We haven't had repeat rain to help that grass grow. That's what we call a green drought. So we have a situation where we're getting some, it's so cold my eyes are watering, so therefore the grass is not going to grow terribly well. So cold nights, warmish days, we have what's very, very stressed, tiny little shoots of green grass coming up. That is a problem in that it's very, very high in sugar because it's stressed. It's storing its sugars as fructans. These don't do very well in our horses' digestive tract. So the small amount that they might be able to pick from that is very high in sugar, very low in fibre, and can be a problem for our horses suffering from insulin dysregulation and metabolic syndrome. So you need to be very careful with that, but also not rely on that for your horse's fibre intake.
Okay, so we have to be careful. How do we negate that? If horses are going to flock to the green tinge, they'll flock to anything that they can. So if they are eating it, is there things that we do? Do we put balanced supplements in to try and
I
stop
think
it?
the best thing to do is always provide them with supplemental fibre. So they need to have at least 1.5% of their body weight per day in dry matter. So that is ideally hay, chaff if they can't chew hay terribly well, or even other fibre sources such as beet pulps, soy hulls, hay cubes. There's a lot of alternative fibre sources available, but provide them with some fibre so that they're not trying to get the fibre from that green pick. If they do have insulin dysregulation or metabolic syndrome, you'll have to try and lock them up from that because it's really quite dangerous, particularly the porky ponies amongst us. We highly recommend fibre throughout the day, so if we can offer them hay several times throughout the day, or a round bale, that's really important when we've got ground that looks like this. The other issue with that green pick is it's very delicious. They're going to be trying to get it. It's obviously very short. They're going to be picking up dirt and sand at the same time. So we have seen an increase in things like sand colic at the moment with this lack of fibre on the ground.
I was recently at a veterinary clinic and they said they have not had a day that they can remember without a case of sand colic, and more often than not more than one, and that was scary. They had a lot of the surgical gloves hanging up with the manure and trying to see. That's how the conversation came about. So it is a serious problem.
It is a really big problem. So there's a couple of things we can do to prevent sand colic when we've got no fibre on the ground. That's obviously providing them with lots of fibre supplementary, so hay in a hay net, or not feeding necessarily directly on the ground, because as they're picking up the last of that hay or feed, they're going to be ingesting some soil. So you can buy lovely big rubber mats from Bunnings, for example, that you could feed on, or hay in a hay net or a hay feeder is helpful. And then really there's a lot of research done on sand colic and trying to clear the sand from the digestive tract, lots of different fibre sources there. A lot of people will feed psyllium husks to help with removing the sand. Really interestingly though, a lot of research has been done to show that psyllium is actually no better than other fibre sources as long as you're providing plenty of fibre. So beet pulp, soy hulls, lots of really good quality hay is also very effective at removing sand from the gut. So you don't have to try and get your horse to eat psyllium, which isn't very tasty. As long as they're getting lots of fibre, that's very helpful.
So psyllium husks work.
They absolutely do work.
But it's not the be-all and end-all.
It's not the only thing that works, no.
Now, when you're talking about beets, and we were just talking there before with the girls, speedy beets, these sorts of new products that are now onto the market, they're water soluble, they actually expand, they're very, very tasty. Horses like them. They have quite a few benefits. You can warm them up in the colder nights as well, so you do help that. But these are the sorts of products you're talking about when you're saying about beets?
I am. So when I talk about beet pulp, I'm talking about Speedy. There's a few different brands, Speedy Beet, Micro Beet. There's a New Zealand one that's over here. And they're essentially a byproduct of sugar beet production. The sugar's been removed mostly, and so that's just a high fibre product. Very, very good in drought conditions when there isn't a lot of fibre on the ground. They contain quite a lot of calories, but it's calories that are provided by fermentation in the hindgut, so they keep the horse warm by fermenting in the hindgut. Weight by weight, same calories as cereal grains. So if you've got a horse that's struggling to gain weight, a kilo of beet pulp, dry weight that you then soak, is the same energy as a kilo of oats. So very, very good for calories.
Wow. So, and as I said, the other part keeps them warm. So
keeps them warm, hydrates them, because that's the other thing with the cold weather. You've got to keep them drinking, and they don't want to drink when it's cold.
This is one thing we didn't discuss prior to it. We are going to touch on haze and that in a second, but water is another issue. You would have drove past our dam. We haven't used our dam for probably, 3 weeks. Every horse here now is on, rainwater. But unfortunately, we've actually had to buy in water because we haven't got that. So they're actually now on town water. So good quality water is a tick, but we need to be aware once we change it, because we know ourselves, the three of us notice ourselves, as soon as we go off rainwater onto the town water, it tastes so much different. You need to make sure that they are drinking, and if not, molasses, beets, those sorts of things to try and help them maintain their fluids. Yep,
absolutely. And don't rely on the dam that might be in the back of the paddock, because as obviously the water reduces, it becomes muddier. We've got blue-green algae in a lot of our waterways at the moment, so we've got to really make sure that there's a good water supply. Horses also don't like to drink terribly cold water, so on frosty nights we need to make sure that water's available to them hasn't got a frozen top, for example. And yes, of course, the taste of town water with the chlorine is completely different to our rainwater. So again, making sure that they stay hydrated is pretty important.
One of those things that sometimes people take for granted. The people in town, they would be used to it. You don't taste it after a period of time, but it's when you have that change.
Oh, the change, it's pretty extraordinary.
Cereal haze, getting impossible to get.
Any hay,
is getting very, very hard to get. But you still need to be diligent when you've got horses. If you can get it, and we understand, there's money is one reason that people can't, and then the availability is the other thing. But it's one of the most important things we can feed the horses this time of year.
Look, it is, and it is very, very expensive at the moment, but I think weight by weight basis, it's still the most affordable form of calories for your horses. So I have been doing a lot of diets recently for people whose horses have dropped condition during this drought. They're wanting to feed more feed, but actually they're not feeding enough fibre. So if you can get the fibre right, that's going to be the most affordable option. So hay, whatever hay you can find, provided it's suitable for your horse. So obviously if you've got again, insulin dysregulated horses, you don't want to be feeding cereal hay or hay that's got a high sugar content.
Yep.
So find some lower sugar hay. Sometimes you can even supplement it with wheat straw to just get the fibre into them. But yes, it's a matter of having a very good relationship with your hay provider and really getting what you can find, getting and using what you can find.
Consistency of hay would be so important. The same hay as often as you can.
Look, ideally, yeah.
But right now that's not that sort of... So again, that would be one of those things you need to monitor with your horses, their different disposition. If you get one round bale that might last you 2 weeks, and then you change to another one, they might change. You need to be aware of that, especially the bit of green grass coming through and things like that. They might not eat as much of the hay.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, hay quality is also really important. We just, a lot of, hay that's available now is sort of the ends of the runs that they've had, or maybe it's a few years old because they're really, people are getting desperate. So look for mould, look for high weed content, look for, hay that's not great quality. Because, of course, you can have associated health problems with feeding mouldy old hay.
I say to people before to go to the websites and check the feed diets and go from there. Last time you were here, we just filled our hay shed up with hay and went from there. Yourself and Andrew took some back and did and it was high in sugar. It's not ideal, but it was not the worst thing. We just had to monitor our diet. So you don't want hay that's high in sugar. We don't want, those sorts of things. But if that's what you have, you can still work around it with your diet and supplementing your diet differently.
Absolutely. Like if you've got hay that's come back tested high in sugar and you need to remove that sugar, you can soak the hay, for example, and then rinse it off, and that removes quite a lot of non-structural carbohydrates. The hay that we tested for you was perfect for racehorses, not so perfect for your heavier performance horses that aren't working terribly hard. So, you can make it work, and then you just need to potentially find some alternative fibre sources to just boost up that fibre.
And then we go back to those beets and those things. So they are there.
And chaff.
Yeah. Yep. And that wheat and chaff. When I always grew up, it was only ever oat and chaff and loose and chaff. There are other options out there as well for people.
Yeah, well, essentially chaff is essentially just chopped up hay. So you can have wheaten, oaten, lucerne, teff, timothy. It depends, what's grown, what's turned into hay, and then chopped up into short chops. So
yeah, so any of those. Need to make sure a little bit, I suppose, of a public notice too. We actually had a friend of ours. Be very careful of the people supplying the hay. Make sure they're reputable. There's a lot of scams out there.
Or if they exist, because there's a lot that are not existing, and that's terribly sad.
Yep. People putting deposits down, and they're not getting anything because that person is not a hay provider. So make sure that you know your person that you're getting it from, and again, know the history of the hay as well. So that's also very important.
Yep. Ask for a hay test. Most reputable suppliers will provide a hay test for you, so that you know how much protein's in that hay, the energy content of the hay, the sugars, so that you can work that into your diet. And I think it's a really good point to make that prior to a drought, and when it's not a drought, hay producers are constantly producing hay. So have a relationship with your hay provider so that, in times like this, they're always going to look after you and keep you in the hay that you need. So
and they'll have hay for you when it gets a bit tight.
Absolutely.
And build that relationship up.
Yep.
What else do we need to do? Like this time of year, we're leading into winter. Do we observe our horses? Obviously, I would imagine is number one. Check your forage, make your grasses and things along those lines. Good water supply. be aware that it is winter coming up?
Winter, it feels like we went from the middle of summer to the middle of winter here. We've had no in-between temperatures. I think obviously people are busting out rugs. Horses' coats have got very long. Keeping them warm is important. A full belly of hay is one of the best ways to keep them warm if they've got shelter. But don't just chuck a rug on at the beginning of winter and forget about them. Take the rugs off regularly. Condition score them. A long coat is going to cover a lot of body condition, so use your hands and make sure you can feel how they're going, because you can lose 50 kilos and not see it because of the long hair. So yeah, observe horses, keep them well fed, well hydrated, and hopefully get through the winter.
Go to barastochhorse.com.au or go to KER, just K in the 3 letters, .com. Get advice. Don't be scared to ask for advice either. Even if you've got a history of understanding these, make sure you're aware that the green grass coming through right at the minute is probably only good for the mower, and that gives the guys something to do. But other than that, it's probably one of the worst things that we can have going forward. And just monitor your horses, I suppose, are the 3 key points. Make sure you give plenty of forage. Plenty of forage.
Feed it ideally off the direct ground. I mean, it's good to have the head down to eat, but maybe on a mat so that they're not ingesting sand. Keep lots of fibre, lots of water, and keep them warm and enjoy.
Dr. Clarissa Brown, thank you very much. Douglas, Brown-Douglas, I was in trouble there. I was like, I forgot one of the surnames to that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to KER and to Barastoc for making these possible. I've got the jacket on too. I actually got the KER one underneath, but it's only the sleeveless model and it ain't coming out today.
It's not going to work today.
There's no way it's coming out today. But yeah, hopefully we've helped a few people. I appreciate your time. We're going to continue to do these. Hopefully next time in wintertime we're doing one and there's grass everywhere and everyone's upbeat, but there's always other problems with that. But I really appreciate you giving me a bit of time, and hopefully we've answered a few questions for a few people and give them a few answers as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.